everyone, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in making this fun new Ripple Bracelet featuring our newest bead, the WaveTrio. If you need to catch any of the waves, check out below to shop with us online. Gather up your materials and let's get started. To begin our Ripple Bracelet, we're going to be using our round beads here in the 8mm disco ball crystals. I have 4mm Czech glass in the Crystal Lab Full, and both 15s and 11s also in that Crystal Lab Full. I have our newest bead here, the WaveTrio, in a beautiful rose gold color. So we're going to get ready to create this bracelet, and you can see how much variety the look can give based on the colors that you pick. I'm going to be using a Potomac's Rivoli clasp, and this is a clasp guarding clasp that we'll set the Rivoli in later. I've taken the tongue out, and I have a wire guard on my thread. I have about 5 feet of thread with 2 size 10 needles, one on either side of that 5 feet of thread. I've gone ahead and taken my thread and needle through the wire guard so that it's facing down like the horseshoe, and then also through and letting my tongue of my clasp stick right in the middle there. Coming out, I'm going to pick up my first 8mm disco ball bead, and I'm going to put both needles for this whole entire center row that we're going to be working on. 2 needles go through every single bead. So I'm going to put on my first bead, which is my 8mm bead. Then I'm going to put on one 11-0 bead. My 11-0 bead is going to sit, again, both needles through. So sometimes with the smaller beads, you're going to have to separate the needles, take one through a little bit, and then take the next one through as well. After this first couple beads, you want to make sure that you still have an equal amount of thread in your hand as you're holding it, so that way you don't get to the end of your project and run out of thread with one side. From here, we're going to pick up our first of our WaveTrios, and we're going to pick it up so that way we're going through the arch and coming out the top of the arch of the center bead. From here, I want you to add one 15-0 bead onto each needle. So one 15-0, each needle goes through that same 15-0, and let that fall down. We're going to pick up our next bead, which is going to be our next WaveTrio, and we're going to put this one on so that way, again, we're starting from the bottom of the arch now, and we're sewing toward the opening of the arch. That's going to have these sit right next to one another. And you can see then there's a perfect opening for us to drop in our 4mm Czech Faceted Rounds. In the middle, between each grouping of my WaveTrios, I'm going to add one of my 4mm beads. Again, this whole center row, both thread and needle go through each bead. From here, I'm picking up my next one of my WaveTrios, and again going through the center bead so it caps on to that 4mm piece, going through from the arch towards the top. And that'll encapsulate it right here along the side. Repeat the 15 in the middle, so 1 15. After my 15, I have one more of my WaveTrios going in from the bottom of the arch, taking my needles toward the opening of the arch. And that's going to finish off my rotation. It's going to be the exact same thing here for this whole ripple and ribbon looking bracelet. Now what I'm going to do is repeat the same thing. So I have one 11-0 that I'm putting on my thread and needle here, followed by one 8mm, followed by one more 11-0. And if you want to, you can sew with just one needle and then come back and re-sew through the whole entire thing. That's up to you. I'm doing both at the same time for tension purposes and for teaching. And there you have it. Now, back on repeat, go ahead and put in your first of your WaveTrio, then the 15, second WaveTrio, 4mm. WaveTrio 15, WaveTrio, and then 11, 8, 11. Continue on the whole length of your bracelet till you have about 6.5 to 6 3/4 inches. Your clasp will add about 1/2 inch, so keep that in mind as you're creating and going along the piece. So once you're done with your center line here, and to give you an example, I have 8 of my disco balls on and 7 of my little ripple sections there. From here I have my wire guard, and I'm going to put my wire guard on with my thread and needle going through one side of them. And now this time I'm on to my clasp of the other side. So this is my push clasp here. And I'm going to take my thread and needle back down the other side. And the wire guards are optional, so if you're not crazy over wire guards, you can use a ring if you want to, or even just some seed beads, or directly attached to your clasp. Once I have that thread and needle down the opposite side too of the wire guard here, what I'm going to do is put my clasp into the wire guard. You can see the wire, just the thread sits right in there. I'm going to take my clasp, put it on my needles, make sure that it sits inside the wire guard, right there. And then take both of my needles and thread, and we're going to go through that 8mm disco ball bead. So I'm going to go through that disco ball with one needle, and then through the disco ball with the other. And I want to separate out the needles now. So one needle is going to go to the right side, and one needle is going to go to the left side down the project. If you're using a button or a toggle or anything like that, you would also be putting that on now too. From here, we're going to separate out our needles and our thread. So one is going to go to the right and one is going to go to the left. The one that goes to the right and the left are going to have the exact same steps and techniques that happen along them. So what you're going to do is pick up 2 15s, 1 and 2, and that's just going to hide a little bit of thread as you bring your thread and needle down to the exterior holes of the WaveTrio. From here, in the middle here of that WaveTrio, you're going to add your 4mm Crystal Lab full bead. I'm going to put the needle and thread kind of above and out of the way for the other side. I'll do about 1 inch or 2 of the bracelet and then switch to the other one as well, again for tension reasons. I'm going to sew through them, when you're looking here, through my next hole of my WaveTrio, so that way the 4mm bead sits right in the middle. In between, grab one of your 15s and sew on to the next open space. So you can see just how it sits right in there. Grab your next 4mm bead and then into the next hole of your WaveTrio. So you're just literally sewing right down the line here. So you can see how perfectly that sits in. Along the side then, what we're going to do is we're going to add some of our 11 OC beads. So we're going to add 6 of our 11 OC beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you want to, you can also add some more crystals here, make it even more blingy. And I'm going to sew then into my opening of my next WaveTrio. So I'm going to go the whole way design now, framing out the crystals with the silver, as well as adding in my 4mm beads with the 15-0 sitting between the wave groupings. As you progress up each side, you can see how nice these fit in here and kind of that nice jeweler's look that you're getting. And I apologize, I misspoke on the last clip here. You want 5 beads on the side. I'm not very good at counting apparently. So you want to have 5 beads on each side. And as you're going, you can see that what I've done is I've done a couple on the right side, couple on the left, and then I'm continuing to alternate sides again so that tension stays correct. Once you have your beads on and you're ready to go on to your next section, you just keep going. So I'll do probably 5 or 6 stitches here on the right side and then bounce over to the left and then continue on right, left, as I go up through that piece in that project. Once you finish with your Ripple bracelet, all you're going to do is, I've already done this with the right or the left side here, and I'm coming up the right side. I've gone up through, added my 15 O's, gone up through my 8mm round, around through my wire guard, through the clasp, back down through the 8O seed bead, and then what I'm going to do is add my 15. I have my two 15s on there, and then I'm simply going to tie these two threads together. That's the awesome thing about using two threads at a time, is that you get the opportunity to tie the knots off and you don't have to really think about it too much. Especially with a larger bead like this, you'll be able to hide your knot pretty easily in the design. If you want to, you already have two strands of thread going through each end of the clasp, but if you would like to, you can always repeat your thread line and take another strand through it. For my final task, all I have to do is glue in my champagne Rivoli, and my project is complete. Right now I'm going to take my wire guard, or I'm sorry, my thread burner here, burn off my thread ends, and then burn them flush next to the project. If you don't have a thread burner, you can comment below and attest to this. Thread burners are awesome, and I would totally suggest that that be on your shopping list. Right there then, you're all finished up. I'm going to be using some Loctite glue here, gluing in my Rivoli for my final piece, but I want to show it on my wrist and how cool that looks and how different it looks from the darker colors to the lighter colors when you decide what colors to do for your Ripple bracelet. You can tell also on the Ripple bracelet for your details whether or not you like the brighter colors and going with some of that 8mm Czech glass or the crystals and changing up the designs. List below which one you are planning on doing. As always, thank you so much for joining me in making this fun Ripple bracelet. We're really excited to bring this new Potomac's bead to you, and we really hope you enjoy the WaveTrio bead. Remember, you can always comment below and say what you're going to use the WaveTrio in, what colors you're excited about, as well as any questions, concerns, or switches that you made in the pattern. This helps to build this awesome beading community that we are so happy to be part of. As always, too, make sure to click that button to subscribe so you get regular updates from us here at Potomac Beads, so you get patterns and new things like this new launch of the WaveTrio. As always, again, if you need any materials, check out the links below to shop with us online. Thanks so much for joining me in this debut project of the WaveTrio, the Ripple Bracelet.